Hi, thanks for having me. So this is a paper with Daniel Jones, who's right here. Okay. So this paper is about whether people really want to stand out and in what situation do we observe that putting people on the spot or making them more visible may actually not increase giving. So the background to this paper is that commonly we think about, there's been a lot of literature that says that if you want people to be better, nice, act better, volunteer more, give more money, then make it observable, make their actions public. Because people are both altruistic, genuinely, and they also want to be seen as altruists. Okay? So there's a couple of recent research that made us wonder whether this is always the case. So this is from Mike Sanders back here, who's going to present this later. The donations that are particularly large or particularly small are more likely to be made anonymously than moderately sized donations. And here's a dictator game. So dictator games are those where you get some amount of money and then you can split it with a person, and the person doesn't have any say on how they want it split. You just give it to them. Okay. So this meta-analysis of dictator games found that if the dictators are identified, there's three effects. They're less likely to give nothing. The modes shift from giving people 0 to giving them 50%. And they're also less likely to give more than half of the pie. Okay. Third one is a survey experiment. So this person tried multiple treatments to get people to donate more. And among all the potential treatments that they have asked, receiving a recognition in the school paper was the only one that gave a negative response. So our hypothesis is that some people don't want to stand out in both negative or positive ways. And so if you put them in the spot, they avoid scrutiny by signaling that they're an average person. So I'm just average, I'm not bad or good, just don't look. Okay. So why might people not want to stand out? So surprisingly, people could be punished for being too pro-social. So there's an experiment on giving in the lab where they have found that people who are giving a lot in a public good experiment can be punished by other people. Okay? So it could be that people who, if you are too good, then people who suffer by comparison might resent you. Or you might just be think of as a different person. Right? You're too virtuous. You're just different. Okay? So the thing that we want to test is that if people are of the normal type that we think about, that they want to stand out, then if you increase visibility, the low donors are going to increase their contribution. The middle range donors are going to go a little bit higher. The high range donors are going to go even higher. Right? But if donors are these wallflowers, we call people who don't want to stand out in negative or positive ways, visibility induced the low donors to increase giving, but the high donors to decrease giving. Okay? So what you get is it will draw the contributions towards the middle range of what their peers are giving. And what's the implication of total giving? It's really hard to say. Okay? So if your initial contribution is one where there's a large mass of small contribution and then there's a small mass of high contribution, it could move the big mass of small high contribution lower, right? Or it could move this a little bit higher. So it's hard to say. Okay? But what we're going to do in this talk is we're going to show you a lab experiment where we ask, do these people, these wallflowers who don't want to stand out, do they exist? Who are they? Okay? And then we're going to go to the field and we're going to say, these wallflowers, do they exist in the wild? Okay, do they react the same way to what we see in the lab? Okay. So this is our lab experiment, and I'll walk you through the experimental design, and I'll show you an example. So what we have is, this was run at Pitt, and so the students we have students, and they are randomly matched in groups of 3. Okay? They're matched through a computer, so they don't know whether they're matched with which exact person. Each person is then given $10, and then they watch a slideshow about a nonprofit. In this case, it was Engineers Without Borders, and then they make a donation. Okay? So the subjects are told that we have two treatments. In the baseline treatment, subjects are told that they will place the donation in an envelope and then just leave it in the computer terminal. In the visibility treatment, we tell subjects that they will make their donation with their other team members. Okay, so when it's done, they'll all go to the same room and they'll put up their donation, put it in an envelope together. Donations are made in two stages. Okay? So the first one is subjects just state their contribution. How much do you want to give? Put something down. The second stage is what's interesting, which is they didn't expect it, because now they're given a chance to condition their contribution on their other two group members. So this is like saying, if this person gives 0 and this person gives $4, what do I want to give? You have a chance to revise your contribution. Okay? So there's a conditional stage and an unconditional stage. Okay. All right. So here's an example. So we have 15 subjects in the room. 1, 2, 3. Each person is given $10. Okay? And it's all in bills of cash. And then we show them a slideshow. And then after the slideshow, we go to the unconditional contribution. And then we say, how much do you want to give? Okay? So suppose the first person wants to give $2, the second one doesn't want to give anything, and the last person wants to give $6. Okay? Then we go to, and then we say, surprise! You can revise your contribution given your other two group members' contribution. So then they see a screen that says, suppose one of your group members wants to give $0. How much do you want to donate if the other one gives also $0? Or one person gives 0, the other person gives 2 or 4 or 6, etc. Right? So in total, there's 21 contributions that they can give. They can give in $2 increments. So then how we implement this is we pick one out of the 3 people to be the person whose conditional decision will be implemented. Okay? So for example, let's take this guy who wants to give $2. Right? So he sees this screen, and then he fills in the blanks, and then suppose when he gets to 0 and 6, he puts in $4. Okay? So now, when he's going to give, his screen will show, instead of the $2 that he originally put in, that he should put in $4. Okay? This is the baseline treatment. So in the baseline treatment, your privacy is protected. Nobody sees what you donate. Okay? And then in the visibility treatment, your privacy is unprotected. Everybody can see what you're donating. Well, everyone in your group. That's it. Only the 3 people. Okay? So everybody understand what the conditional contribution is. Yes?
And of course, the other 2 people can change theirs, or
they can change theirs, but they weren't picked to be the person whose decision is implemented. Right? So one person, so among the 3 people, one is randomly picked to be the one who uses their conditional contribution. The other 2 just uses their initial contribution. Okay. All right, and this is unknown, so people don't know who's the conditional guy. All right, so summary statistics. The summary statistics is not, so people give about $3 in the initial contribution and about, very close, about $4 in the visibility condition. So there wasn't a significant effect of being observed here, either in the unconditional contribution or in the conditional. But what we're really interested in is how do people position themselves given the hypothetical giving of their group members, right? And how does being visible makes them position themselves differently, okay? All right. So here's an example of how people are positioning themselves. So suppose you initially want to give $2, and then I tell you that, I ask you, how much do you want to donate if one member gives $4 and the other one gave $8? If you were in the baseline treatment, then you say, then 46%, like you have a 46% chance of increasing your donation to $4 or above, right? And this is not surprising. We know that social information makes a difference. If you're in a visibility condition, you know you're going to meet your group members, then this increases. You are 59% likely to increase your donation to $4, right? So you're 1 step beyond 4 and 8, which makes the range of your group, right? This is kind of like the lower and the upper bound of your group. And then you step in 1 step into within range of your group. Okay, let's look at high givers. So suppose you gave $10. In the conditional treatment, you have a 43% chance of increasing your contribution to meet the upper range of your peers. However, if you're going to meet your peers and give this in front of them, there's a 70% chance that you will decrease your contribution. Okay? So everyone's going in the middle, right? So what you see with this is, if we look at the frequency at which people go within range, then in the full sample, if we look at the entire subject, so we have 75 people in the anonymous, in the baseline treatment, and 75 people in the visibility treatment. There's a people go into within range 24% of the time, if they're anonymous. If they're visible, this goes up to 32%, and this is significant. Okay? So now there has been existing work that shows that people are different in many ways when it comes to their sensitivity to their social environment and to information about what other people are doing. So one is how familiar you are with the nonprofit, right? And then things like demographics, like gender also matters. So we're going to look at both of this. We're going to split it now based on the effect of visibility on people who are familiar and people who are not familiar with the Engineers Without Borders, and then on gender. Okay? So this is people who are familiar and unfamiliar with Engineers Without Borders. So you can see that the people who are unfamiliar are much more likely to go within range in the visibility condition, right? So being observed has more an effect on them. And this is 10, so now it's, so originally the effect was increasing it from 24 to 32%, and now it's from 22 to 32%, right? So 10% increase. Okay? So if you're familiar, you're not so much affected by visibility. If you're unfamiliar, you're more affected. Now let's look at gender. So there's a huge effect in gender. So women, when they're not visible, are only 20% likely to condition their contribution to be within range of other people. Right? They're like, fine, you tell me what other people are giving. I care about it 21% of the time. Right? And then you say, well, you're going to give your donation out in front of them. They're like, okay, now I really care. Right? So then you go up to 38% likelihood of being within range of your peers. Okay? So what do we found? We found that there are these wallflowers type that don't want to stand up in a negative or positive way. Then they go to the middle. And we also find that they're likely to be females. So then let's go to the field experiment.
So right before you go to the field, so
yes.
You can go into the middle from below and above. Right? Did you find that it was equally likely for the people who started at high and low to move into the middle?
So we find that there are very few people who gave a high amount, right? But the people who gave a high amount are more. The coefficient is larger in moving down. There's a lot of people who gave a small amount, right? So.
Well, in every group there's one person who gave the most, or right?
Well, we gave them the entire distribution, the entire 21 scenario. So that was aggregated across the 21 scenarios.
There could also be, since there's a 1 in 3 chance that the conditional contribution is going to be selected, maybe it's simple old risk aversion.
As in?
Reducing the variability of the actual outcome that's going to go to the charity. By moving to the middle, I'm removing the extremes.
But why does this only happen when I'm going to be observed, right? In both cases, you have the same kind of condition.
It's still in effect, but I'm not sure about it with the wallflower tag on it necessarily.
But this is only happening when you're observed, right? So if you're not observed, so it has something to do with being observed, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to now check the field experiment and see whether or not we see wallflowers in the wild, right? Okay, so we ran this at a community fair on campus. And this is, so there's staff members, so this was at Caltech, there was staff member, there was community people, there were neighborhoods, there were students, and everybody got a booth, and in the booth there's activities, right? So Roy knows this. So there's all these activities, and it's a very fun event, but there's a huge opportunity cost to doing things because there's food and dancing and everything that's going on. Okay, so what we do is we created a real effort donation opportunity for people. So we had a word search game. So in this word search game, you search for words that are related to sustainability, and then when you highlight the words, you donate 15 cents to a water project, right? And as you go through the word search game, you have these grids that are 12 words, and when you finish a grid, you're donating $1.80. So when you finish a grid, it asks you, do you want to continue playing? And then if you click yes, you can continue and then you can keep playing. So we have two treatments. One is a score treatment. And in this score treatment, what we do is we just give you the scores of people who played before you without names. Okay? And then after you observe the score, then it's your chance to play. In the names treatment, we ask for your name first. And then we show you the list of names and scores of everybody who's played, of the 10 people who played before. Okay. All right. So this is our booth. And there's a bunch of laptops lying around. So we have in total 104 people. And they worked about 5 minutes and contributed about $2.25 each. 50% of the subjects stopped after one puzzle. Okay, so this created like a modal and a median distribution contribution at one puzzle. That was pretty strong. So let's look at men. So men's contribution doesn't change much between seeing other people score and seeing their scores and names. But for women, it actually went down when you ask for their names and display the names. Right? So we went from $3.15 to about average $2 per person. So what's going on? Okay? So what we want to look at now is whether or not asking for their names has this effect of pulling their contribution into what they think most people are doing. Okay? Which in this case is finishing after one puzzle and donating exactly $1.80. So I'm going to show you the distribution of giving with scores and with visibility split for males and for females, right? And then we're going to look at the proportion of people who gave less than $1.80, which means they were playing the game and they stopped without finishing a single word search. Those who finish exactly one word search and those who do more than one word search. Okay? So here is the distribution. So for men, there was little change. Okay, so the distribution looks very similar. About 60% of them were finishing exactly one puzzle in both treatments. For women, what we saw was there was about 40% that finished exactly one puzzle in the scores treatment, but this went up to almost 60% when you ask for their names. And the contribution, the decrease in contribution was coming from the women on the black bar there, which was initially finishing multiple puzzles, the black bar. They were finishing multiple puzzles, and when they moved towards finishing exactly one puzzle, that's when we get the drop. Okay. So, in conclusion, visibility doesn't always increase giving, and instead, what it does, it has an effect on increasing the influence of social information on what you do. Okay? What we see is females' donation move towards the middle range when you are observed, and observability can decrease giving when you have a small bump of females who are giving at a high amount previously, and a big collection of people who are in the middle range that were giving a small amount. Okay, so wallflowers exist in the lab and in the wild, and they're likely to be females as far as we can find. Thank you.